And I'm Rich G. I'm going to be presenting a lot of great stuff today. The presentation is going to run about a half an hour, and then I'll take questions. What does it mean to get a job? What does it mean? You know, a lot of people feel like it's just striking a mutual deal with the labor market. It's like buying a hamburger at McDonald's. Okay, do you carry hamburgers? Yes, I do. How much are they? They're $1. Here's $1. Here's your hamburger. It's that simple. That's what getting a job is. But for some reason, we kind of make it an exalted process. Like we're below the person that's hiring us at the moment. Actually, no, you're on parity, if not a little bit higher, because they're looking desperately for people. But for some reason, we put ourselves down here and everybody else up there. And that affects a lot of different things in our job search, especially salary negotiation. So you need to get that out of your head. The analogy I use all the time is everybody feels like Oliver Twist going, "Oh, please, sir, give me a job." And it's like, no, you're on parity with that person. So it's just striking a mutual deal in the labor market. And yet when people talk about it, they think, oh, a company wants to get me a job. What a relief. And it's not that, as though as having a job were in and itself some special privilege for which a company is the gatekeeper. And that word gatekeeper, we're so afraid of that. You just need to get by that gatekeeper. A job is just a deal, kind of like buying a hamburger. It's a deal between you and the company to exchange labor for money. That's it. I do something for you, you give me money. Dispel yourself of the term gatekeeper, okay? That mindset is going to hurt you. Time it when you're interviewing, when you're talking to HR, when you're talking to recruiters, and when you're negotiating benefits and salary. It's get rid of that gatekeeper mindset. You are equals. I always tell my clients, I used to tell my employees too, there are only 2 times you're on equal terms with your hiring manager: when they're hiring you and when they're giving you a review. And I maintain this: when they're reviewing you, they're discussing money. At the end of the day, they're reviewing your performance. But what they're really doing is discussing money. And so when they're discussing money, that's reality, okay? And you need to be on parity with them and talk to them and negotiate. So you could use these techniques not only to get a job, but also during review time too. Always, always negotiate, okay? Sometimes people won't negotiate. Oh, that's a high enough figure. I actually had a client that got last year that got a job at Facebook. Okay, she was making $100,000 a year. They offered her a salary of $450,000, and she asked me, "What should I do?" And I said, "Negotiate higher." And she did. She got an extra $25,000. It doesn't matter how good or bad you think you are. You never damage a relationship by negotiating. In fact, they're going to look badly on you if you're not negotiating. And what do I mean by that? They're impressed when you negotiate. People are impressed. They're not put off. They might act put off, but really they're impressed because A, they negotiated. B, you're going to negotiate constantly in almost any role that you have in corporate. You're going to negotiate with vendors, negotiate with bosses, negotiate with peers, negotiate with your team. You're going to constantly, with clients, you're going to constantly negotiate. And if you show them right off the bat that I don't like the term tough negotiator, but fair negotiator, okay? You're never going to damage your relationship. In fact, like I said, it's going to enhance your relationship with your new boss. You might think to yourself, well, I don't want to set high expectations and the offer is already generous, so I ought to just take it. No, negotiate. Because if you don't, you're losing out. I always say every $5,000 that you get, on top of what they offer, they I don't call it money. I go, it's a trip for you and your family for a full week at Walt Disney World. Okay, so every few minutes of negotiation can add these vacations to you. So think of it that way. Or maybe I don't want to start off on the wrong foot and look greedy. That word greedy with a future employer. Take the word greedy out of your system. I want you, no, negotiate. Okay. Finally, but this company is small and it's hard, and no, shut up, negotiate. Okay. You have to negotiate. And sometimes we're not good at it, but just look at it as like getting a tooth filled. It's going to be 20 minutes of being uncomfortable, unless you have a really bad doctor. You're going to be uncomfortable, and then it's all over. So please negotiate. In fact, all in, your actual salary is often comprised less than 50% of the total cost of employing you. You probably know that already, but I sometimes bring that up because people are like, oh, the salary is the biggest part. No, it's like 50%. Everything else, benefits and all your vacation days and bonus and all these other things make up the other 50%. So negotiating salary is just a fraction of the total. I'm going to talk about 5 rules today about salary negotiation. And I think I've said negotiation so many times, I'm now having a hard time saying it. So I do apologize. 5 rules. Number 1, get an offer letter in writing. And I'll talk more about that. Number 2, information is power. The more informed you are, the more powerful you'll be during these negotiations. Number 3, always be positive. Put a big sticky note right on your monitor saying smile when you're talking about this. Smile in your voice. Be positive. Don't let them get you down. Number 4, make a list. And I'm going to show you how to make a list that helps you negotiate in a professional manner. And number 5, be calm and go through each individual item that's important to you. So number 1, get an offer letter in writing. This is the most critical thing that a lot of people don't do. What usually happens is you need to separate the job offer from the finals. What happens is the hiring manager calls you up, or the recruiter calls you up, or the HR person calls you up and says, you got the job and here's the salary. How does that sound to you? And they go, you're making 150K. How does that sound to you? And the first words out of your mouth are going to be, if you want the job, by the way, I am so excited. Yes, I fully accept. I want the position. Lock me in. Now, could you please email me the complete offer letter via email? That would be great. And the first words out of the mouth is, well, wait, don't you want the job? And it's like, yes, I want the job. I do. But I need to see the offer letter in complete so I can understand what the full offer is. Because again, the salary is just a fraction of the entire offer. So I need to see it. That's all. I need some time to review each item, and I'll get back to you within, is it okay if I get back to you tomorrow? This is going to be very hard for you to do because they're going to make it sound like they're going to pull the job away. Like, oh, I don't know. We really wanted to wrap things up today. Recruiters really make you feel terrible about this. By the way, I apologize if there are any recruiters out there. They really make you feel bad. Oh, I don't know if they're going to go for that. And here's the reality. If it's the hiring manager, they did the exact same thing. They just want to wrap it all up. HR people are even more insidious. They want to lock you to the salary. They don't want to have to go back and forth with the hiring manager and negotiate and come back. They don't want to have to do that. So they'll make it sound terrible, but push for the offer letter, okay? Because they pushed for you. So push for it. Just have them email it to you. And it gives you, just tell them, I'll get back to you by tomorrow. and I'll let you know. So you could discuss it with your spouse or partner or family or friend or whoever, or coach, and review it. So get the offer letter in writing. That's the most important thing. Have them email it to you. Number two, information is power. Okay, when you know, you kind of get that feeling like they're going to offer me the job. Know your worth in the marketplace. Okay, start doing some research. Now, it's not just a number on Glassdoor. Glassdoor is good, and a lot of people swear by it, but I find that Glassdoor is sometimes a little bit low because they can't be highly prescriptive in the salary. They usually give you a range. And I always say err on the high side of the range. And it's also based upon where you live and where you're going to work and the company health. There's a lot of different things, but it's a combination of you also. You're the product. So think of yourself, how valuable are you to them? They need you. They need you. So it's your experience, it's your knowledge, your specificity in your industry. It's what you bring to the table. If you're in sales, can you bring a lot of clients to the table? Do you have a lot of names? If you're in marketing, what kind of things can you do for them? It's all built in. You need to add yourself up. And this is where I want you to feel positive about what you do. Okay, study your marketplace and to better understand your worth and their needs. Look at other jobs that they're interviewing for and see the salaries that they're listing for that. Like I have a client that owns an engineering firm. Engineers usually can write their own ticket. They are so hard to get, really good ones. And they're in high demand to the point where the president of the company actually has to go to colleges and teach at schools to get the best cream of the crop, because the minute engineers are graduate, they're picked up immediately because they're in very high demand. And also certain financial people are in high demand also, I find. I have a client right now that's in fixed assets, and she definitely has a lot of people vying for because it's a hard position to fill. So you need to understand your worth in the marketplace so you get a better idea that you can actually argue back, well, actually, positions like mine are being advertised for this much and this much. So you can negotiate and you have a higher level of understanding than maybe the HR person or the recruiter that's talking. Third, always be positive. Always be positive. It's very hard. The hiring manager or the HR rep or the recruiter will make it sound, I always say, make it sound like you're stealing money from their children. And it's true. It's like you're stealing it from their college fund. This is my money, my kids' money. How can you ask for more money? It's all an act. In fact, they should get an Oscar. Most recruiters and hiring managers and HR people should get an Oscar because they're great at making it sound like the company has no money. And to be honest, it's for you to get an extra $5,000 or $10,000, they're expecting you to ask for this. But if to the company, it's like a $5 bill on the floor. So I want you to stay positive, be positive, ensure you have a smile on your face, you're engaging at all times, and keep the negotiation positive. If they start to get caustic or a little angry, hit them with positive. Say, like, Steve or Mary, I'm just really trying to work with you. I mean, we can figure this out. We're going to come to happy medium. We'll make it happen. My list is really short. I only have a few things I want to talk to you about today. I don't have a huge laundry list here. Or honestly, Steve, I've already accepted the job. Let's chat about a few numbers. So always be positive. It's how you position yourself is the best way to do it. Make a list. This is the key. This is the number one thing. I want you to take the offer letter, which is usually a huge list of paragraphs of things that they're offering. And I want you to take each item and cut and paste it into an Excel spreadsheet. And this is how, by the way, this isn't complicated, so I haven't written it, I haven't displayed it. It's literally column one is the description of the item, so salary, okay? Column two is their offer. So like their offer is 112,000. Okay, 112K. Third column is my offer, where I'm going to start. I want you to actually start higher than you want to. An old boss told me once, whenever you throw out a figure, you want the other person to inhale quickly, like, ooh, boy, that's high. That means you picked the right number. So don't go crazy. If they're offering 112, you say 200, they're immediately going to say you're out of your mind. But ask for a little bit more than you normally would ask, like 140. It might turn them off. They might go, oh, no, we're not even in the same ballpark. Don't listen to that. This is a negotiation. It's not ultimatums. Nobody's throwing ultimatums at each other. Just throw out. And then the fourth column is what you're going to settle on. What number would sound like maybe 125K? Okay. Do this for each of your items. So salary, usually it goes, and put the most important things at the top: salary, bonus, vacation, or personal time. They call it personal time now. They bunched it all together. Personal time, hybrid workplace. Can I work from home certain days? All the way to things I used to negotiate in near the end is that they would pay for any kind of educational thing. If I have to go to a conference, I negotiate 1 to 2 conferences a year. I negotiate any book or magazine or membership subscription they'd pay for. I'd negotiate that all in there at the end. Usually they're like, yeah, sure, that's fine. Just put it in there. And it's important that you do that, because get them to pay for it. You're building yourself up for them. So it's so, so important. And list everything, but then draw a red line. If I get these 3 or 4 things, I'll just stop negotiating. And that's the important thing. Like if you get 140K salary, I myself wouldn't play with the bonus too much. Okay. Or, maybe vacation or personal days are very important to you. Put that pretty high. I know there's some companies that go, and we're going to give you 2 weeks of personal time. And it's like, wait a second, I'm 38. I'm not 22. I need at least 4. And I want you to negotiate. I want at least 5 weeks of vacation. Okay. Now, why? Why do I always tell my clients to ask for more personal days? Because unless you're working on a chocolate factory candy assembly line where you're wrapping the candies, and if you're gone, the candies are falling on the floor. Most jobs, not all, most jobs it costs the company nothing. You work like a maniac up until you leave for vacation. You probably bring your laptop along for any emergencies during vacation, and then you work like a maniac after you get back. So guess what? The company loses nothing, no productivity, no real manpower loss or person power loss the entire time. Okay, so don't worry about asking for vacation days. And I've actually told clients to explain, go, honest to God, vacation days don't cost you really anything. You're never, my leaving is going to be transparent. One thing that I do negotiate about personal days, let's say you want 4 weeks and they can only absolutely give you 3 weeks. Talk to the hiring manager and just say, look, the 4th week, I'm going to just take a single days, like Fridays off. Let's just keep it off the books. I know of no boss that'll say no to that. They'll just go, sure, that's fine. Just between you and me, just take Friday off. That's fine. So most companies are like that. So make a list. This is the most important one. So you have a talk track the entire time on how to talk. So next, be calm. Remember, be positive. Also be calm. They might try to get you riled up, and go through each item. You're not going to get mixed up. That's why you have it on a spreadsheet, and you're going to just go down the list with your pen, and you're going to check each one off. So this is how I teach my clients to negotiate. Okay. First, you immediately, salary is usually the biggest one. Let's tackle salary first. It's very positive. Let's tackle salary first. You offered 112K. I'm looking for a little bit more. I'm looking for about 140K. Now shut up and listen to what they have to say. They're going to go, oh my God, it's going to be an award-winning performance. Oh, that's way out. I mean, we were discussing this range. I can't believe. I said, well, what you really want to say to them is, I'm your first choice. You've chosen me. Now it's my time to negotiate. That's the reality, but you can't say that. So let them blather, blah, 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 blah. Just let it go until they stop and wait for a counteroffer. 9 times out of 10, they go, I can't do 140. I love it when I can't do 140. Okay. Their counteroffer, you go, well, I probably could do like 115 or maybe 120. Okay. Always listen for the higher number, by the way. Never go to 115. If you hear 120, that's your number now. Write it down. And then they'll say, blah, 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 120. You just made $8,000 in about a minute or two by just pushing yourself out of your comfort zone. And that's why it's so important to negotiate. Now, I want you to come back with, well, 120, thank you for coming up. How about if I come down to like 130? I've now dropped. How does 130 sound to you? And you're going to be super nervous at this point because you're pushing them. And they're going to go, I've already come up, a lot. And your first figure was out of bounds. I go, yeah, well, I've come down about 130. They might come up a little bit or they might stall. One of those two things are going to happen. I want you to say at that point, you know what, let's split the difference at 125K and we can move right on from there. How does that sound to you? 125K. See what they say. Most of the time, every one of my clients that has done this script, guess what? They get 125K. And that's where you wanted to stop, right? So you've moved up $13,000 in the span of like 2 or 3 minutes. And that's a great payoff. You're almost at Jeff Bezos numbers, making that much money in a minute or two of just conversation. So that's how I want you to negotiate. It's always throw out a big number, have them come back, shut up and listen, have them come back with something, lower yours a little bit more, and then hear what they have to say, and then say, let's split the difference. Let's split the difference is used almost, if you've ever sold anything on Craigslist or anything else, let's split the difference is a common term used. Whenever I'm buying something at a thrift store or something, I'll start negotiating with the guy. And that's a great way, by the way, to practice negotiation skills. So here's something that's in probably everybody's mind. What if they get mad and rescind the offer? Okay. In my 15 years of coaching, that's never happened with any of my clients. Never happened to me. And as an executive, I've never rescinded the offer when someone negotiated with me. Never. But we think of this constantly. We think of them rescinding the offer. So what kind of resources have they spent so far to fill this position? Let's just take a look. And this is actually from an article of how much it costs usually to hire someone. Writing and posting a job is about $300. Reviewing 100 or more resumes is about $1,250. If you keep on going down, there are phone screenings, there's initial phone screens, there's on-site interviews, there's on-camera interviews. They make an offer, all of this stuff, all in all, this process takes about 45 days from start to finish on average. And it costs about $24,000. Okay, and you're negotiating over about 12,000, 13,000. They have wiggle room. And here's the biggest thing that I want to tell everybody that's on the call today. The number that they initially say is their basement bargain number. It's the lowest number because they expect you to negotiate. They're expecting you to move up a little bit. Okay, so please whatever number they throw out, if it's the recruiter, HR, or the hiring manager, it's the lowest number. It's the lowest number. And to be honest, I also tell my clients, if you can, don't negotiate with HR or the recruiter. They're not on your side. They just want to close this as fast as possible. And sometimes not HR people, but recruiters will sometimes not tell the truth. They'll go, oh, they're going to walk away. They're going to walk away. You got to take this. And they almost act like your friend. They're not your friend. They want this to go away as quickly as possible. So I always encourage my clients, if you can, to have the negotiation conversation with the hiring manager, because that's the person you're going to work with. That's the person that has the budget and knows that they can pull out some extra dollars. HR doesn't know that. They don't really care. They want to get this as fast as possible off their desk, and they'll say things. And recruiters, there are some great recruiters out there, but a lot of them will play devil's advocate, kind of like realtors. They'll do the same thing. Oh, they're going to walk. They're going to walk. It's like, no, throw out the figure, see what happens. So anyway, rescinding almost never rescinds. You're never, unless you were very angry or got in a fight during the negotiation, which you're not supposed to do, they'll never rescind the offer. You can work it out. And that's the thing that most people are very scared of. So some books I recommend that really help my clients. This first one is a go-to one. It's called Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss. It's not only, it covers salary negotiation, but it covers any kind of negotiation that you would do in a role. If you're negotiating with vendors and clients and other, it teaches you the psychology behind negotiating. Great book. And if you find that you're lacking confidence in negotiating, this is a great book to help you build up your confidence so you can negotiate. So get both books if you'd like. They're great books. Those are the ones I recommend. So that's it. Any questions? I'm going to open it up. I'm going to unmute everyone, and let me just see. Mute all, and then if you want to unmute yourself and ask a question, that would be great.
Hi, Rich. This is Aileen Cahill. I have a question about don't negotiate with HR or the recruiter.
Yep.
A lot of times the hiring manager is your friend and HR is devil's advocate, and the hiring manager won't discuss salary and specifics with you, and that's been relegated to HR, so you don't start off with a bad taste in your mouth between you and your new manager. Yep. How do you make sure that you can get back to the hiring manager who really loves you?
Well, the first thing is I always tell clients is when you're interviewing, with the recruiter, with HR, with the hiring manager, with the staff, always at the end of the call, if it's, and now it's over webcam, but if it's in person, always get their business card so you have all their contact info. The second is to ask the hiring manager, Steve, or Mary, if I have any other questions, can I get your direct line so I can just give you a quick call? Most hiring managers will go, that sounds great. Now you have their phone number. And so let's say HR calls you up and says, makes you the offer. And you go, well, let me take a look at this offer and let me see, is it okay if I call? You could say, you guys back, or you back tomorrow. And they'll say, that's great. I would call the hiring manager and ask them very nicely, would it be possible? I got the offer letter. I have some questions. Can I discuss this with you? Can we talk about this? 9 times out of 10, they'll go, sure, let's do it. And it gets the HR person or the recruiter out of the conversation, because again, they have an agenda. They want to get this done as fast as possible. And I've actually, if I may be so bold, I've actually had HR people screw up hiring in that respect, where they handled the negotiation and they were at the wrong level for that. And the person that I was trying to hire was like totally blown away. They're like, I thought the salary was this. And they're like, no, 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 it's written right here. And they actually had the wrong grade or level for that position while they were negotiating. And they called, thank God, the person I wanted to hire called me up and said, Rich, what's going on here? So I can't tell you how angry I got at HR. I said, you must be quoting from a different figure. This was the number I discussed with her. And it was really, I almost lost her. I almost lost her. She almost said, I'm going to go take another job. And I was like, oh my God. And HR is like, oh, I'm really sorry it happened. So there are negatives about negotiating with HR too. Not that it's a bad thing, but it's better for you to negotiate with the hiring manager. So I hope I answered your question.
Yes, thank you.
Any other questions? I'm here for you. And if you want to ask anything else too about job search or any other thing, I'm happy to answer questions. You've got me for the next 20 minutes. Anything that's bothering you, anything that's happening, if it has to be about salary negotiation, I'm happy to answer those questions.
Hey, Rich, it's Steve Martin. In your section there, information is power. As far as finding information on, net worth or gross worth, or whatever you want to call it, besides Glassdoor, any suggestions, any other opportunities to look at?
Absolutely. One of the things I always do is just do a search on the position that you're looking for and see what other companies are paying for. Seeing what other companies are paying in different parts of the country too, to understand what the ranges are. It's if you're like a senior product manager, plug it in Indeed and see what the salaries are. See, or LinkedIn, they sometimes have the salaries. So you can do that too. So that's a great way to find out. Also, just better understanding. I always say an educated guess. There are probably some governmental books that you can look for too. Glassdoor is one, but I bet you if you Google it and you start to see, you'll start to see salary levels for those
There's
positions.
salary.com.
Yeah, there you go.
And then JobScan has that.
There's also payscale.com that sometimes is useful. There's a bunch of tools. Sometimes they're complicated to use though, because they ask you for so many specifics. It's a little hard to drill down, but you can usually get an idea.
It's very, I usually say don't put a lot of emphasis because you ultimately want to make more money, and you'll see what they're offering. I always would ask more, based upon what you want. I'm actually working with a client right now that was at a company for many years, and he has a very high salary, and it's going to be very difficult for him to replicate that salary, just because it was overinflated in his position because he was there for so long. And now the average salary for that position is not significantly lower, but it is lower. And so we had a hard conversation because he was finding positions. He was like, yeah, but they're like $60,000, $70,000 less than what I'm making now. And I said, well, there are two things you could do. Go for a higher position, or you're going to have to lower your expectations a little bit, or find a perfect position for yourself.
Rich, any thoughts on, there are a couple of, obviously there are a lot of objections and responses that the counter negotiator can come up with when you're asking for more. You've outlined the basics, but there are a couple that come to mind are, well, there'll be an incentive bonus depending on how things go or how good a fit you are, whatever you want to call it, or will there be a salary review in 6 months or a year and we'll make adjustments then. Obviously those are offering nothing, but there's still responses. Any thoughts on dealing with that kind of thing?
You've hit that's I'm so glad you brought that up. That could be an option, like a signing bonus. Getting a signing bonus is always.
No, I meant a bonus down the road.
Down the road. Okay. Oh,
completely not fixed though.
Yeah, that's one of them. There's one that I always say, if they're really reticent, if you're very close, you could say, I understand, I'm an unknown quantity. You really don't know what I can bring to them. How about we get it in writing that in 3 months or 6 months, we'll set some targets that you want me to hit. And if I hit those targets within 3 or 6 months, then you'll bump my salary up to the level. Get it in writing though. I always say, have that in your back pocket. If they're unwilling to move at all, most people are willing to do that. Like, look, let's set up like 2 or 3 targets, sales targets or product delivery targets or something that you want me to hit, that I'm up to speed. And then we could review it at that time. And honestly, at that point, they're your friend, they're for you. Odds are they're not, it's not for like $50,000, but maybe it's for like $10,000 or $20,000 increase. They're probably happy to negotiate that. So to your point, yeah, that's a great thing to do. Also, signing bonuses are huge. This time of the year, a lot of people are waiting for their bonuses for the new year. And if they get a job now to talk about a signing bonus, they're usually happy to give you some cash at the start. That's something that you could do too.
Hey, Rich, thanks for all of this. This is Kathy Parks. Hi. What are some other things beyond the money that you can ask for if you've reached like the breaking point with them, they can't budge any further? What else can you ask for?
I'd ask for telecommuting from Fiji. That's where I want you to pay for a nice house on the water, the blue water, no, but there are lots of other things. You could ask for more vacation.
Okay.
One thing before the pandemic, I always tell clients, negotiate I did this at my last job when I was working like 15 years ago. Can I telecommute 3 to 4 days a month? Can I do that? And the hiring manager was like, oh, that's fine. No big deal. 3 to 4 days a month, no big deal. Every Friday I work from home. And all of my peers were like, how did you do that? I negotiated it. So it's sometimes not cash. It could be, can you pay for my train ticket that I take to commute? Can you pay for my car? Can you pay for my phone? There are other things that they might be willing to pick up for instead of salary. But make your way down the list. Salaries first, maybe bonuses second. Benefits, increase benefits. Talk about, I want to have a full checkup by the Mayo Clinic once a year. It costs like $5,000.
What about like sponsoring a master's program or, extra tuition reimbursement? Would that be out of line or is that okay?
No, education. I'm a firm believer in education, any kind of that, because it's not like you're instantly smart the minute they hand you the diploma. Okay. You're bringing your intelligence or heightened intelligence and techniques to the job the entire time you're learning. And frankly, it's your time. I remember when I was at a job, one of my first jobs, I took a class at the School of Visual Arts, a copywriting class in the city. And I'd have to take the train from New Canaan to the city and back, and I paid for it all out of my pocket. And I wish my employer paid for it first.
Great, thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Anyone else?
Yeah, Rich, it's Janet here. I have 2 questions. The one is, do you have any suggestions of negotiating with regard to profit sharing? And the other question is, if the offer is for you to begin his contract and then transition to perm, would you recommend negotiating a higher salary during the contract part, especially if it's 1099 as opposed to W-2? Or do you just go with what your salary will be, at the future point for the permanent part of it?
Yeah, I'll answer the second one first. Yes, I always ask for more just because they're not paying for anything. They're not paying for healthcare or, your taxes or anything like that. Any unemployment or anything. So I definitely ask for a lot more money as a consultant or 1099 person. But then when you come back, be willing to lower a little bit, do the math per hour or per diem, and then understand that salary is just a portion of what they're paying. They're paying a lot.
And so with you agreeing that the contract portion would be at a higher rate, is there any sort of typical percentage, like it's 20% above, or, I don't know what?
It depends. I always say, look at what look at your salary and then look at all the costs, like your hospitalization and, you're going to have to pay, I pick out a number like 12 to 16,000 a year. So that's an extra $1,000 a month that you should add on to the cost of your salary. And then it's also, again, going on the line and seeing what, if you're going to be a consultant in that area, about how much you should charge for that sort of thing. The other thing I just want to add quickly is if it is a temp to perm, try to negotiate right at the start that there is a review time, because they can make temp last a long time. And you want temp to last 6 months, a year at the most, because a lot of people get into this temp to perm thing and it just continues staying temp for a long time. And then you decide, well, they're never going to budge because they're in a great, they could fire me at any time. They're using me as much as possible. And then after a year, you have to start looking for a job again. And that's bad too. So I definitely say if you're going to negotiate, also negotiate an end. Like at the end of 6 months, you're going to make a decision to keep me on permanently, at that time.
Okay, great, thanks. And then your thoughts about negotiating profit sharing?
Absolutely. It's very complicated, but they'll usually, you can ask for it, but if they do have profit sharing, they'll probably have it in the offer letter. And you could discuss if it's stock options or that sort of thing, which now you might disagree with me. It depends on the company, but most companies, when they're offering you stock options and stuff, I always say bonuses, don't ever plan on a bonus. There's so many people, clients and people that they're like, what's his name in Christmas Vacation, that's waiting for that bonus to buy that pool, that in-ground pool, and he doesn't get the bonus. Don't ever plan on your bonus. Stock options too, or any kind of options, they're nice to have, especially with a startup. You could get that, but it might not ever come to fruition, or it might not turn out. There was a company I was at, I got a ton of stock options. The stock was just hovering over like $5 a share forever. It was almost like they were doing it. And of course, when I left the company and I sold all my stock options, this stock shot up to like 40, go figure. So there you go. So any other questions?
Yeah, actually, Rich, a quick thought, just as an aside for Janet on profit sharing for smaller companies.
Yeah.
A couple of things to keep in mind are, number one, to what extent will you be affecting or influencing the actual profit of the company? I mean, if you're a CXO, that means that profit sharing is going to partly reflect how well you did your job effectively. If you're not going to be a significant impactor, then you might want to think more about wanting some sort of an individual incentive bonus, because that way, if you do well, but the company doesn't do well, that may pare your bonus a bit, but at least you're relying more on your own abilities and success than the company that you couldn't help it and they just didn't make much money. And you may want to think about that in there as well. Sorry.
No,
Thank
Brian,
you.
Thank you. Thank you for adding that in. It's always
Finance
good to have a CFA in there to help out. I'm a marketing guy. I just give as much as I can. Anybody?
And the other piece of that profit sharing is, it's nice, even if you don't have significant influence, it's nice when you're going to have decent visibility if you're kind of have an inside track on the numbers, so you kind of know what's coming, as opposed to if you're further down the ladder and you just get the email with everybody else one day, here's the answer, and you didn't know what was coming. I do have a question, Rich.
Sure.
About negotiating. So I get into the situation sometimes where they'll say, all right, we want to make you an offer. This is the number. I want to make sure that works for you before I send the letter out.
Okay.
And that's obviously tricky, because you don't necessarily want to say, I want to say, well, I want to see everything, the whole picture, so I can look at the whole package and so on and so forth. And then sometimes I get pushback where, well, okay, but we want to make sure that the number is good before we send the letter out.
Yeah. There are two ways you could go about it. First of all, again, they want you. They really want you. You're their first choice. So they really, and if you're their second choice, they really, really want you because they got turned down with the first choice. So, and I've seen that happen a lot. So they're going to sound like, we really need to know if we're cool on the number or not before I send out the offer letter. That's kind of like a red herring half the time. It's just like, you could change the offer letter in a second. But you need to keep telling yourself, the biggest thing that I talk to clients about is confidence. You need a lot of confidence during this because you can push them. And I definitely would say, look, I just need to maybe say we're in the same range. This looks good. This looks good, but I need to see the entire package to get a better feel for the position. And it's not like you're going to ask for something ridiculous like 2x the salary. We're in the same range. And I understand they go, well, what they're really saying is, I don't want to do any more paperwork. So what I send you is the final thing. It's like, well, no, we're going to negotiate on this. So,
Sorry, I had actually had a follow-up on that on the negotiation process. And obviously how much you push them, in effect, how much more you're looking for depends so much on facts and circumstances, what you're really expecting, how much you want the job, what the job market is, and so on and so forth. Having said all that, notice that in your slide example, the bump from 112 to 140 was 25%.
yes.
And then the coming down were, you came down one easy step of 10,000, and then the next one was 50% of that, which I've heard as a recommendation, that you never make your second adjustment more than half of your first adjustment or less than, or whatever. But is that 25% sort of a kind of a default starting point to think about, or not necessarily? Is that just coincidence?
Yeah, I always say to make a reasonable jump in salary and then add a little bit more, because you're going to come down. So the reasonable one would have been like 130. So I said, make it 140. But to your point, 25%, it depends. Like my client that was offered $450,000, 25% bump would have been like, wait a second, what is that, $105,000? No, she asked for a little bit more. She asked for 5, and I think they settled on 475. And she said they settled on 475. I say, see, 2 minutes of conversation, you got an extra $25,000. So they're going to make you feel uncomfortable. And it's not painful. It's just uncomfortable. You're stepping out of your comfort zone, and you just have to get through these feelings of, I'm being greedy and I'm being outrageous. I'm being, oh, that's a crazy number. No, it's not. It's actually a pretty good number, So yeah, you just have to get, and I know, no offense, finance guys, they're like, oh, I don't know if I should ask for that much more. And it's like,
absolutely.
no.
And then you get in there as a senior finance guy, you look at the numbers and you go, oh yeah, there was room for plenty more.
Yeah.
And just as a quick side thought, if they can't afford a few $1,000s more, maybe it's not a great situation to be going into.
Again, the number they originally give you is their basement bargain number or bargain basement number. They expect you to negotiate more. They always say this number, and it's like, go a little bit higher. Let me give you a quick example from a business point of view. One of the first workshops I ever did for IBM. Okay, I put a whole proposal together and I put a number. It was just one. It was a keynote for like a 2-hour. No, it was a workshop, 8-hour workshop, and I think I put like $28,000. So I was going to be there for one day, but there's a lot of prep, a lot of things, a lot of people, and so it was like an 8-hour day, and I put like, I think 28,000, and I showed it to my wife, who is merciless. And she just went, double it. And I went, no, I can't do that. No, they're going to turn it down. She said, double it. So I doubled it, and I sent them the presentation. By the way, proposals, always present the proposal. I presented, they went, okay, that looks good. That was it. Oh, okay, that looks good. And I was like, oh my God. And it taught me a lesson of companies, if they want you, they have the money. And if you're their first choice, like I said, they don't want to go over and start the whole process again. And they don't want their second choice because you're their first choice. So trust me, negotiate. Any other questions? No? Well, this has been great. I'm going to try and do these every week, every Tuesday at noon. I'll put you on the newsletter list and I'll have a different topic for next week. So feel free to come. I really enjoyed everybody coming today. You guys had phenomenal questions. Thanks again and have a great week. And by the way, let me just show you, if you're interested, I always forget to do this. If you're interested, let me just go here. Check out my website, richg.com. Oh, geez, there's over 700 articles. There is 200 podcasts. There's lots of information there for you to grab. Check it out. And if you want to talk to me one-on-one, just hit contact. We'll set up a 30-minute call. I'd be happy to talk to you about anything.